hospital. And Tropical Storm Nicholas drenches the Texas and Louisiana coast after coming ashore as a Category 1 hurricane. Also, the Secretary of State faces heated questions about the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Authorities call in the SWAT and a crisis team to handle an armed man at the Joplin Webb City Industrial Park. This is KOAM News at noon. I'm Tanya Bach. Tapping our first 7 minutes, a 4-hour standoff turns into a shooting investigation. It happened yesterday at the former Eagle Pitcher facility at 3220 Industrial Drive. That's where officers found a man with a gun pointed to his head. The SWAT and crisis teams tried for 4 hours to de-escalate the situation. The standoff ended with the man shooting himself. He was taken to a local hospital with life-threatening injuries.
Because of the way the situation ended, we believe there's probably some mental health aspect, and so that's one of the things we'll be looking at and evaluating and hopefully determining, and hopefully we get his injuries treated and get him the assistance and the help that he would need.
Davis says the man never fired at the officers and the officers did not fire at him. Like we said, he was taken to a hospital with life-threatening injuries, and authorities have not released his name. Well, this summer, the Carthage Water and Electric Plant raised its rates 3.7%, which is a bit higher than the typical annual rate increase that usually falls between 1% and 3%. The plant's general manager, Chuck Bryant, says they had to adjust after big changes at the Carthage Butterball facility.
From what I understand, they are planning to and have made adjustments in their production schedule and are moving a lot of their major utility usage production to a location in Arkansas, and Carthage will be a manufacturing and packaging facility for them. So it's just a little bit different usage of their utilities, which was for us results in about a $2.3 million reduction in revenue.
2021 rate increase boils down to a $6 increase for the average residential utility bill. Well, our electric bills aren't going to get a break anytime soon.
No.
Not with this heat. Michael Aesop joins us with the first look at the forecast.
That air conditioner is going to kick back in all weekend long. Now, we may get a little bit of a break coming up tomorrow. That's going to be thanks to some thunderstorm activity. But after that, you're exactly right. Boom. You go ahead and know the air conditioner is going to run all week long after that. Live look outside of Television City where, yes, hours here at the station, they are humming as well because it has been a very warm morning even with that cloud cover. 86 in Joplin, 88 already in Neodesha, 84 in Cassville, and also 84 in Miami. What we're eyeballing is up to our northwest. We talked about it this morning. It's a very slow moving front. It hasn't collapsed very much. It's just kind of stayed through north central Kansas, but eventually it is going to head our way. Just won't get here until tonight. And of course we see what's down south, and we'll get to there in just a little bit. But let's tackle our Tuesday into Wednesday here in the 4 states as our temperatures will top out around 90 degrees here. But look at those panels on the right hand side as we finish off. Whole lot of thunderstorm activity. So as we roll through, we're going to begin this evening, and that's going to be heavy rain, thunder, and lightning. Then as we progress toward midnight, this batch that rolls through, this is bringing us high winds as well. We could see gusts 40, 50 miles an hour. Now, as it dives off and eventually makes its way south of I-44 by, say, mid-Wednesday morning, then it dissipates. Temperatures behind it, very, very nice. We're talking about 85 for a high after we get through the rain. But then as Tanya was talking about, the heat is going to come back and the AC is not going to stop. Of course, the big talker nationally speaking from a weather perspective, there it is. Still a tropical storm. Goes by Nicholas. Tanya's got the latest.
That's right. Nicholas made landfall overnight in Texas, and the winds were powerful and damaging, but rain may be the biggest concern with this slow-moving storm. Janet Chamelian has the latest from Kemah, Texas.
Nicholas slammed ashore as a Category 1 hurricane in Texas overnight, packing powerful winds and dumping significant amounts of rain. More than 12 inches in Galveston, 7 in the Houston area. Across the region, roads are flooded, and at one point, power was out for more than 400,000 customers in southeast Texas.
The concern is wind. It's too windy still for them to go out and fix those down power lines.
Wind gusts top more than 75 miles an hour in some areas, toppling trees and damaging structures like this gas station. People are being advised to stay home.
And that way you'll be safe, and then you'll be helping out our first responders as well.
Forecasters say Nicholas is moving slowly, meaning higher rain totals and the potential for further flooding. The storm is now headed for Louisiana, where thousands are still struggling to recover from Hurricane Ida. The governor has already declared a state of emergency there as storm-weary residents prepare once again. Janet Shamlian, CBS News, Kemah, Texas.
The National Weather Service predicts there could also be a possible tornado or two along the upper Texas and Louisiana coast. Well, in Louisiana, many people are still reeling from Hurricane Ida. That devastating storm displaced not only the living, but the dead, too. In Barataria, it's estimated Ida's storm surge uprooted up to 50 caskets. FEMA will cover up to $8,000 per grave to help get them back in the ground. The state of Louisiana now mandates caskets are labeled with identifying information for situations just like this. That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at noon, round 2.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken back in the hot seat after being grilled by House lawmakers. I'm Skyler Henry on Capitol Hill as senators get their chance to question the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan.
And later, Howard heads down to Amish country to make carrot cake whoopie pies in the Mr. Food Test kitchen. Secretary of State Antony Blinken faces more tough questions from lawmakers about the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. Yesterday, he was grilled by House members, and today it's the Senate's turn. Skyler Henry has the latest from Capitol Hill.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken called the evacuation of U.S. forces out of Afghanistan heroic.
In the end, we completed one of the biggest airlifts in history, with 124,000 people evacuated to safety.
But lawmakers had tough questions about how the Biden administration executed the withdrawal, including leaving an unspecified number of Americans and Afghan allies behind.
You evacuated 6,040 Americans and say only a couple of hundred remain. Your own department told this committee in July that there were 10 to 15,000 Americans in Afghanistan. There's a huge difference between 6,000 and 15,000. What happened to these other Americans?
The secretary says the federal government did everything it could to get all Americans out ahead of the withdrawal deadline.
Our consular team worked 24/7 to reach out to Americans who could still be in country, making 55,000 phone calls, sending 33,000 emails by August 31st. And they're still at it.
Secretary Blinken faced the toughest questions from Republicans, but frustrations with the withdrawal was bipartisan.
Mr. Secretary, the execution of the U.S. withdrawal was clearly and fatally flawed. This committee expects to receive a full explanation of the administration's decisions on Afghanistan since coming into office last January. There has to be accountability.
And some question whether America is in more danger of a terrorist attack after leaving Afghanistan. Skyler Henry, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Secretary Blinken said consular officers are in constant contact with the roughly 100 American citizens still in Afghanistan who wish to leave the country. The United Nations says millions of people in Afghanistan could run out of food within months. Even before the Taliban took over last month, Afghanistan was facing a food crisis because of a drought which destroyed 40% of crops and sent food prices soaring. The UN says up to 1 million children now face starvation. The World Food Program says it needs $200 million immediately to buy food in time for winter. The international community has promised more than $1 billion in emergency assistance, but getting that aid to Afghans will take time. In the meantime, people there are desperate, selling anything they can to feed their families. Still to come on the KOAM News at noon, Mr. Food.
Our taste buds are headed to Amish country, so grab yourself a big glass of milk and join us.
But first, Michael Hayslip returns with your complete forecast.
As we dip into 7th and range line, we are going to get ready for a hot weekend. But before we get there, need to know that we are going to have temperatures that are, number one, going to be cooler on the backside of thunderstorm. activity, because that's what we've got brewing. We're starting to see the clouds begin to gather, and what I wanted to do is, since we're facing off to the north right now, we've got a little time here, let's go ahead and rotate off to the west, because that is where we're going to see everything move in. Now, the majority of our action is going to stay on the north side of the I-44 corridor, but you're also going to see gradually blackening clouds throughout the course of our day as well. Now, right now in Joplin, it's absolutely delightful, 86 degrees. We are fighting that south-southwest wind. It's going to be one of those blustery days once again. And we've kind of been there for the last several days. There we are outside of Television City. Our clouds are really not that dark as of yet, but we have seen them gradually glow throughout the morning. 84 in Miami, 86 in Chanute. Look at the cooler temperatures up to the north. Only 81 right now in both Fort Scott and Nevada. Now, eventually, everybody's going to end up in the high 80s, if not low 90s. We actually topped out at 94 yesterday at Joplin Regional Airport. Here is our winds. This is not gusts. These are actual sustained winds. We were able to start off about 8 to 10 miles per hour. Now we're getting into that 15 to 20 mile an hour range. And you'll notice where it begins to swirl right up here. That's an indicator of the low pressure system that's beginning to work in. It's also indicative when we talk about our relative humidity, because while it's low right now, you look up there by Salina and Hayes. Yep, that's where the rain is sitting. So when we go to the Skywatch Storm Tracker, we barely see it creep in our top upper left hand. When we take a look at it, it has not done a whole lot of collapsing. It's been very consistent. They've got a fair share of rain in the north central portion of Kansas throughout the entire morning. As far as lightning, and we've been null and void of that and haven't picked up any storm reports. So even with our thunderstorm activity headed our way for tonight, we don't have to worry about anything that would, say, be flood-worthy. What we will have to worry about, wind gusts, the possibility of hail, and also anywhere from 1.5 to 2 inches of rain, especially when we get into the northwestern portion of the four states. Now, with that being said, things could certainly be much worse, like what they're putting up with on the Texas coast. There is Tropical Storm Nicholas, still a tropical storm as we speak. And as we zoom in right here, eventually becoming a low pressure in the remnants by the time we get to it tomorrow, but still anywhere from 20 to 24 inches of rain expected along the Gulf Coast. And when you look at what they've got for watches and warnings, you'll notice they stretch all the way to the Florida Panhandle. So even though we're talking about the fact that it's having a profound effect, especially in the urban flooding areas of Houston, know that this thing is not going to give up, because it's just going to have ripe conditions as it spins along the coastal areas through New Orleans and then through portions of Mississippi and Alabama as well. As we progress through our Tuesday afternoon, we'll have temperatures around 90 degrees. Clouds, like I said, building. And what's that going to bring? Here we go. So let's reverse a little bit. By the time we get into about 6, 7 o'clock, then we begin to see the thunderstorms collapsing in from the northwest. As we get closer to midnight, that's why you're going to see 1.5 to 2 inches of rain in the northwestern quadrant of the four states. Thunder, lightning, and then here come the wind and the heavy rains. That's going to be overnight, one of those nighttime, early morning affairs. So please, if you have to be out and about early tomorrow morning, know that you're going to run into that. And as a matter of fact, even for the morning commute, we see the rain dip below I-44. So the umbrella going to come in handy just about any time after you leave the house tonight. 7-day forecast is going to feed us nice mild temperatures after the rain. But after that, here we go again. Tanya, we're talking about the middle of September and right in the 90s all the way through next week.
All right, well, welcome back the heat, that's for sure.
Yeah, you and I are talking about those electrical bills. No break yet.
Yeah, it would be nice. I just hope we don't skip over fall and go straight to winter.
No, I don't want that either. Trust me. I do not want that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, thanks, Michael. We take this time to honor today's four-state hero, Signalman Robert Compton Sr. in the U.S. Navy. The sailor joined the military in 1942. The Drumright, Oklahoma native fought at D-Day and served until 1946. To Robert Compton Sr., we thank you, our four-state hero. Well, you can't go wrong with carrot cake and a fluffy cream cheese filling. Howard takes an Amish twist on both flavors with today's recipe for carrot cake whoopie pies in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
You know, I've loved whoopie pies ever since I was a little kid. It all started when my family visited Amish country in Pennsylvania. We stopped at this little roadside stand where I got my very first whoopie pie, and it was heavenly. I still remember squishing out the filling of the 2 cake-like cookies and getting it all over my face. From that moment on, I was hooked. So if you're ready, let me show you a new twist on these. The first thing we want to do is combine a box of carrot cake mix with some water, oil, and a few eggs, then give it a good mix. We drop spoonfuls of this on a couple of baking sheets and bake them off just like you would a cookie. Then while these cool on a wire rack, we'll whip up a filling, which is simply some softened cream cheese with butter mixed with vanilla and powdered sugar. Once it's fluffy, we smear the flat side of half of the cookies before topping with the remaining cookies. The key to a good whoopie pie is that you can't be skimpy when it comes to the filling. Whether you eat these one bite at a time or you squish the filling out and lick it, you can't go wrong. To get the recipe for our carrot cake whoopie pies, all you have to do is visit our website. I'm Howard in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen with Kelly, who's loving whoopie pies as much as I do. And today we found an Amish-inspired way for you to say, ooh, it's so good.
We can find this recipe along with a lot more good food from the Mr. Food Test Kitchen online. Just go to our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Here's a look at our 4 state market prices.
Hot afternoon as we're going to be up into the 90s, but remember the big factor is going to be our evening and nighttime thunderstorm activity as it works in from the northwest. Anywhere from 1.5 inches to 2 inches of rain for the north central portion of the 4 states. Thunder, lightning, we're going to do the whole 9. Mild temperatures on Wednesday and then a heat wave just in time for the weekend.
All right, what do we have coming up tonight at 5?
Well, Apple's expected to unveil the latest iPhone today. We're going to take a look at the new devices from the tech giant, plus compare them to new phones from Samsung and Google. Plus, a local psychologist talks about patients dealing with sleeping issues after a study shows the prevalence of sleep problems during the pandemic. And we're going to speak with a local landscaper about army worms and how they could harm your property. Hope you join us for those stories, a whole lot more. Of course, it's all coming up today right here on KOAM News at 5.
All right, thank you, Dow. Thanks for joining us for KOAM News at noon. We'll see you right back here at 5 o'clock.